here. I think we're good to go. All right, everything says we're on.
All right. Welcome everybody. Getting going here. What are we?
89.
89. Episode 89. Since we started in, well, I mean, it was almost 2 years ago.
Yep, March 2020.
Yeah, I think that's when we started. It's interesting to see the memories from.
Yeah,
It's like just before COVID was really gonna hit. So I'm Javad Chadzi. I'm the CEO of 034 Motorsport, and this is Nate Stewart, our Director of Engineering. And we're here to do a Q&A like we try to do every week. Last week, both Nate and I were a little under the weather.
Yep.
And we decided to just postpone and then ultimately cancel. So sorry about that. We actually love doing these. I look forward to Monday mornings. I really like doing these. They've gone really well, and I think they've had a great effect for the company, as well as the feedback from people that watch them is awesome.
Oh, Facebook.
Oh shit!
All right,
I
hold
said
on.
all three were up.
Jeez, that's supposed to start on its own, and said it did. Go live automatically.
Oh,
No. Okay, I think we're up now.
okay, if you're on.
Live video is starting. It says live. All right, you're now live again on Facebook.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
Hey, Facebook, we're here. Q&A, blah blah blah. Javad, Nate,
Weren't here last
Cars 034.
Yep.
We're sick last week, so please put your questions or comments or discussion points into the browser of your choice, and we will get them in queue here and address them as they come up. I totally have like a tickle in my throat now. That's great.
That always helps.
Excuse me. All right. So we have some questions from the 2 weeks ago session, and so until some new questions start coming in,
Already getting some.
that's not really a question.
ETAs are tough.
Question. Yeah, the ETAs are getting kind of tedious. This is like the
Stuff's,
ETA out.
stuff's coming.
Yeah. Dyno comparison discussion. How much variance do you see throughout a day-to-day condition? Did we talk about this?
I think we touched on that a
We
little bit.
already went over.
We definitely touched on as far as like vehicle mass and basically if there's a couple of different control strategies that various dynos use. One of them is road load simulation, and another is just basically a linear sweep rate. So road load simulation, you'll get it tries to as closely mimic what actually happens on the road. So you'll get, especially with turbocharged cars where it's a very non-linear power band, you'll get a big hit of torque, your acceleration rate changes versus, maybe the top or the low end of the power band. So it's this kind of like hump of acceleration rate versus a lot of other dynos. If they're hub dynos in particular, it's almost always the case, but it's they'll do a linear control method just because it's easier from a control system to try and make that whole sweep just a linear.
Which is like a closed loop acceleration.
Yeah, which is something that could, unless you're driving over a very specific, hill, is never going to happen. So dynos are tricky beasts to try and like use, and correlate data between them because there's so many variables just in the way things are loaded up, the way they work. You can take a hub-based dyno, alter the sweep rate, and you'll get very different power numbers on some of these cars just because the way the turbo loads up.
Well, for example, just before we went live, there's 5 different devices here, and we noted that all 5 different devices were telling us 5 different temperatures.
Oh, yeah, right. We were just
the temperature in Fremont.
The Fremont, the like little weather like icon thing.
And there's no doubt that each location that's measuring the temp is like, well, let's talk about temperature and weather real quick.
Mm-hmm.
The 5 different weather temperature specs that we got are all accurate in their own right. One's on the other side of Fremont, one's over here, one's in the shade, one's in the sun. So there's reasons why they're measuring differently, but they are different. So no one can look at all 5 of those and say the temperature in Fremont is actually 68 degrees. You can't do that because there is no one temperature in Fremont. So these these devices are all reading accurately. And then you could even go into, well, how are these thermistors, calibrated? So is there, are these actually accurate to like plus or minus 1.5 degrees? So then you get into all that. So then you have that variation, which you see with diamonds too. So if you want to go to like that hilltop in Fremont, and you can sit there all day, if you watch that thermometer and the temperature from it, you'll know if it's getting warmer or colder. You'll know if it's hot or if it's cold. Even if you couldn't feel the temperature, you could look at that, and you would know relatively well what's going on with the temperature on that particular hill. But if you're in San Jose, you can't use that because you're in a totally different part of the atmosphere. So this is the same problem that dynos have at different locations in different parts of the country, with different cars, with different tires, with different straps, with different tightnesses of those straps,
different settings on
the different
configuration,
calibrations. Then you have correction factors. It's the myriad of variables increases the complexity greatly. If you go to ABC dyno shop on a particular day and you dyno, and then you put in an air box and you dyno again, you're going to get a very accurate representation of what happened to the horsepower at the ABC dyno on your car that day. If you go dyno on a Tuesday, you go back on Friday with a different intake and you dyno, you're going to have a more watered down comparison, because now the temperature has changed, the humidity has changed, how the car is attached to the dyno has changed. So then you're talking about another EFG dyno on the other side of the country, and you want to compare it to ABC. So it just starts getting very complicated. Doesn't mean dynos are bad. It doesn't mean that they're not extremely accurate and useful.
Right.
But they have to be contextualized, and you can't just on the surface, read the top line number and read it as gospel.
Yep. Yeah, it's something we've struggled with since we've had a dyno or used a dyno. These numbers are meaningful, but not necessarily completely relatable.
They have to be used in the right way, in the right context. That you can't just look at them and make assumptions based on the simplest criteria. It's a bad idea and it won't work.
And certainly it's tough. It's hard to say one way or the other, but don't assume also that every dyno is being run correctly. I've seen so many installations that are not set up properly and are not loading the vehicle correctly, regardless of what even the dyno manufacturer might say on some instances.
Even if they're being set up correctly, everything I just said is assuming that they're set up and run correctly. Yeah. Now Nate's introducing a whole other very valid variable. Yeah. And then beyond that, I would say there's companies and dyno shops that lie.
Well, it's just manipulation.
This is a well-known thing that if you take the dyno has an air temp sensor that measures the temperature of the air, which influences the correction. So if you take that sensor and you stick it in the engine compartment next to the exhaust manifold, what happens to the correction factor? It skyrockets, because the dyno assumes that that's the air in the dyno cell, and it's now 180 degrees, and so your engine's ingesting 180 degree air. Well, 180 degree air is much less dense than 75 degree air. So if your engine's making that much power with that low density of an air, then it must be making a lot more power. So it adds and inflates the correction factor. And then the customer, walks in. You hand someone two dyno sheets. One's grossly overly inflated with a huge number, and the other one's accurate and depressingly low. Which dyno sheet do you think the customer is going to be happier to get? People love being lied to, and so someone goes in there thinking they have 450 horsepower, and you hand them a 580 horsepower dyno sheet. You just made their month.
But you hand them a 440 horsepower dyno sheet,
they'll be bummed.
It's going to be rough.
Yeah. So there's this huge issue with dishonesty, and then the fact that the market actually eats it up. So the tuners that go out with the highest, biggest, most inflated numbers typically get a very positive response. And sometimes our numbers are the highest. It's not because we've inflated them. It's because we worked very hard to create that result. But anyways, we could talk all day about dynos.
Yeah, a lot of
next questions coming. All right. Any info for Pierce 700 testing or just TT 710? We have not messed with the Pierce 700 yet. We have a Pierce 750 that we will be testing with. I don't believe we're going to support 700 unless there's a lot of interest or demand for it.
Their naming convention is kind of screwed up. The 700 is also the 750.
Yeah,
They only sell the 700 stage 2 now, which is the 750.
Okay, yeah. So it's
well, this doesn't say stage.
yeah, it's going to be equivalent to
By
what
and large, the answer is yes.
So yeah,
I'm just saying we're doing the 750 and we haven't done it yet. So the 710 is what we're working on right now, and then adapting to from one turbo to another those are small incremental changes.
Once we've got everything pushed, where we need it, and the parameters mapped out to the extent that we need for the 710, it's not going to be far off from the 750.
Someone's asking if we've seen the TT810. We have seen it. We're aware of it. Is the TT710 going to be the limit for the B9 stock motor, bigger turbo support? Not necessarily.
No.
Torque is really what hurts these motors. And so if the 810, the 810 could possibly make quite a bit of horsepower if the torque is still within the limit at the torque peak, which is the challenging part, isn't that kind of 3 to 5,000 RPM range is where you see this surge of torque, which is where the motor's most efficient volume, has the highest volumetric efficiency. So. All this will come in time. Nobody really knows what the limit of the motor is yet. Not that I know of.
Yeah,
we haven't found it yet.
It's always a tough land when you're speculating what these will deal with under extended use and track conditions and that kind of things. Lots of motors will last a very long time just doing dyno pulls.
Yeah.
When you actually start using them on the street and you have very rapid transient loads like lifting wheels on curbs and shock loading things on you can set down. It's a whole different world when you get out in the real world.
And you could actually make quite a bit more power.
A lot more power
off the dyno with the cooler, denser air.
And of course, in completely uncontrolled environments, you're going altitude, you're going wildly different air temperatures and whatnot. You may not have tested it.
We will be doing full big turbo support for B9 3.0T and RS5 2.9T. So there's a lot more coming, and we're just getting started. So I know a lot of people are throwing a lot of stuff around. One of our competitors is talking a lot about full frame turbos. That I don't necessarily think full frame turbos will be as popular as drop-in hybrid type turbos.
Yep.
So that's what we're starting with, and then we will also do full frame support as well. So someone's asking how, I keep hearing that the stock internals for the B9 3.0 are basically around 550 to 600 horsepower. Basically, that's based on a rule of thumb of 100, and it's not horsepower.
This is horsepower, yeah, it's not even...
100, it could be in the 550 to 600 foot-pounds of torque range, which we're already at.
Yeah.
So I think it's higher than that.
Yeah.
But that's what you're hearing about is likely based on this rule of thumb. That's each rod is good for about 100 foot-pounds of torque.
Right. And that's one thing to be very wary of. If someone is telling you a motor is only good for a certain amount of horsepower,
well, then
pretty quick indicator they either don't know what they're talking about, or they have to quantify that at a certain RPM because it's torque
it's still not. I mean, horsepower isn't the problem.
Yeah, it's torque is really what affects or is the force being applied
torque is the force that breaks things, not horsepower.
Horsepower is just a function of it over a certain amount of time.
Yeah. How are you going to be pushing more than that on stage 3 without compromising reliability? It's what I just talked about.
We'll test as much as we possibly can with every combination.
Well, we always test, but how we will do it is by controlling the peak torque.
Yes. Yep.
And that gets easier to do with big turbos that produce power later in the power band. What does stage 3 comprise for the B9 S4? It's basically some type of hybrid turbo or bigger turbo. Could be a full frame. I don't know. And, these are just made up naming conventions.
Stage is completely a made up terminology.
But it's tuning that supports a bigger turbo than the factory turbo. And then, you're going to need some type of airbox and intercooler solution.
Yeah, and
minimum.
Supporting mods it's going to be application dependent, but you can always count on at least everything stage 2, and then somewhere in that. So yeah, intercooler, intake, the normal stuff, fuel pump.
Mm-hmm. Someone's asking if we've considered doing a discussion on how to read our logs. And we've talked about this before.
We have talked about this quite a bit. I mean, our logging tool and what what its purpose is for us to assist you and well, it's a troubleshooting tool for us, so that you can send us a large amount of information easily, and it really helps us analyze and make sure everything in your vehicle, your setup is running as it should be. For us to explain all of the categories in the logs more than what's already there in the logger with the tooltips and whatnot and the descriptions, that's pretty far outside of the scope of what we're going to be able to do. So much of it is very application specific, so that like a log from a B8 S4 is going to be entirely different variable names and functions and things that we're logging versus a B9 S4 or a Mark 7 GTI or something like that. So it's not something we can easily put even a simple cheat sheet together for. It's completely platform and application specific, and we typically are logging the actual system variable. So it's not something that's typically going to be available in like VCS or something correlated to.
Yeah, and what you're asking for is kind of an unintended consequence of us attempting to offer support to our customers.
Yeah.
We never intended to release an end user logging tool to help all of our customers analyze their tuning as a benefit or resource. That's not what we did. So we're really not here to encourage you guys doing this. We really don't want people posting their logs publicly and having random people weighing in on what they mean. I mean, it's not helpful for you to have the best experience.
And part of it is we're obviously not trying to hide anything.
No.
The log's available. It's the data's there. It's a matter of it often very much muddies our support effort when it's cloud sourced questionable information that's been obtained first. And then we have people questioning, well, so-and-so said it meant this when I read the log, when he read the log this way. Is this what's happening? It's like, so-and-so has either very little or very internet-based knowledge, perhaps, on the problem, and they're guessing at it or assuming things which may not be true. So we much prefer to just get the logs directly. Yeah.
But advanced launch control for B9 S4, yes.
It's coming. We're working on it.
We're working on it. No immediate ETA, but it's definitely coming. A lot of customers say the stage 2 TC tune for E85 is better even for 93 ECU tune because of the early shift points. Do you think it should also be applied to stage 2 TC for 93?
We tested them. The gasoline octane files did trap or were faster in the quarter mile testing that we did on those files. So that's why those files exist.
Yeah, we did it for a reason.
Well, if you prefer the short shifting one, sure. There's no reason you can't run it. If your setup is more tailored that way, or that's what you prefer, by all means. In the testing we did, we were able to get quicker times with the gasoline versus ethanol files.
How's your B9 stage 2 TC tune different in drive and sport modes for the trans?
I mean, it's adjusted more. The shift times are decreased more for sport mode than they are for the comfort modes. I mean, that's as far as adjustment. That's the primary change.
Sport mode's going to be more abrupt, aggressive, sporty shifting.
Yep. We did increase the comfort ones as well, just because they were quite slow on some of them, but
a little too comfortable.
Yeah, but I mean that's the primary difference between the two, just as it is stock.
If I install stage 1 93 octane on my B9 S4, do I need to add an intercooler? Would I feel difference over stock intercooler? We recommend you do. There's horsepower to be gained quite a bit if you run an intercooler and intake. It will get you 75% of the way to stage 2 power levels without touching your factory cap. I believe you'll feel a difference, especially on repeated acceleration events when you do back-to-back acceleration. If you just go out on the freeway in a cool car and you punch it through one gear, you're probably not going to feel much of a difference. You might, but if you do that type of acceleration through 3 or 4 gears and you do that back-to-back like you're on track, you will definitely feel a difference.
Quarter mile, not even quarter mile, like it starts coming into play like 2/3 of the way down the track.
But in quarter mile, by second, well into third gear, your temps have maxed out. You're losing power. yes, if you want an extra, 15 horsepower or something like that, and the consistency of power delivery, I would strongly recommend doing that. And currently we offer a Wagner. We are working on our own that we will release at some point. We're currently trying to find the best intercooler core on the planet, and we've tested just about everyone else's cores. So we want to produce a core that flows better and is more efficient and lighter than just about anything else that's out there. If we're gonna come to market with an intercooler, it's not going to just be some like relabeled Chinese thing like most of them out there. Any stage 3 B9 RS5 testing done? What turbos will you support? Full transparency, we have not yet.
Not yet. Nope.
We are working with some customers who have. Currently, we're doing stage 3 for the S4. We're finishing up our stage 1 and stage 2 for the RS5.
Yep.
And we will support all the popular options like TT and Pure, etc. Will injectors be needed for upgraded turbo B9 cars or just a high pressure fuel pump?
I mean, at some point we'll be getting, injectors will be a limitation.
But for now, we believe with the high pressure fuel pump solution that we can get well into stage 3 power levels.
Yeah, we can. And, it's just fuel supply is still, one of the factors that we are limited by. So we'll be doing more and more different delivery options.
What does ZTF stand for? I'll give you a hint. It's the name of the most bestest tuning company on the planet spelled out. Okay. So just think of the best tuning company on the planet and spell out using letters their name. Like, don't use any numbers. And see if you can figure it out. And then
helps if you pronounce it correctly.
Once you confirm that we'll send you a free t-shirt. What camber should I run using your track spec arms on my B9 S4 on your lowering springs? For use only. Camber, there's not necessarily the perfect amount. So generally, the less camber you have, the less cornering loads your tires will be able to create. And, up to a certain point, camber will give you more and more grip, especially from the front tires or where you're adding it. On this, like from the factory, these cars have basically zero.
I think it's around negative 1.5.
So, most factory cars put the tire straight up and down, so there's no tilt of any kind to the tire. And that puts the full tread on the ground. It reduces any rolling resistance. It reduces wear on the tires and tracks and drives really nice. So what we found on street cars, if you can add about 1 degree just on a daily driver, that's a really nice amount. You'll definitely notice it. You'll notice substantially increased grip in corners.
Yeah, on ramps are a whole different animal.
Yeah, you'll also just, I don't know, the front end will just bite. It'll be more lively when you turn the steering. If you want to go to the track, you can get up into the 2 to 2.5 degree range with a good track tire, and with the kind of cornering loads you can generate with a track tire on the track. That would be good. Now, you have to be careful. The more camber you run, the more you accelerate the wear on the inside of your tire. And this is simply because instead of spreading the wear across the whole tire, you're moving it more and more towards that inside. Your contact patch basically moves to the inside when you're just driving in a straight line. Now, when you're in a corner, you're actually going to have an increased contact patch on the outside tire. So if you're turning left, your right tire, so you'll go into the corner and your contact patches are like this, and you turn and that contact patch sits down. This is where all the cornering force is on this outside right tire when you're turning left. So that's a quick, you can experiment with it and see what you think. I don't recommend running too much, but generally kind of that 1 to up to 1.5 degrees on the street can be really nice. But you will compromise some ultimate tire life. And you just want to keep an eye here, maybe a couple times a week, just check out your tires and make sure you don't have any accelerated wear. Why is it ZTF and not OTF? Well, I think you can answer that yourself because
I have a shirt that
because it's not an O.
it's not.
Yeah, it's literally a 0. When can we expect ZTF floor form wheels? Yes, we are releasing a line of floor formed wheels. I think we're shooting for kind of this summer time frame. So we are they're in production. They're being manufactured. Just everything just takes forever right now. Any update on the release for the B9 Superduper turbo inlet? I don't know if we have any like specific dates. We are releasing our standard high flow inlet soon, and then the Super Duper is probably at least a few more months out. We're just later in the engineering process for that part, so stay tuned, hang in there. It's going to be worth the wait. It'll be the nicest, best high flow turbo inlet solution on them for sure for the 3.0. We're also working on a 2.9T RS5 as well. What's the difference in horsepower and mostly torque can you expect between 179 and 190 pulleys for the Stage 2 3.0T?
Yeah, most of the difference is in torque. So that's a good qualification. I'd have to look back at my notes. I want to say it's probably 15 to 20 foot-pounds or so.
The reason for that is the supercharger.
It's just spinning.
Fixed up.
It's just spinning up earlier. Yeah, the top end, the superchargers. So it's very much diminishing returns towards red line.
It allows you to take advantage of some of the capacity that's in the supercharger down lower, but up top the supercharger is done. So its peak flow doesn't necessarily increase, but below that there's still plenty.
Yeah, it's just all these bigger and bigger pulleys just take that power output and shift it down.
And the 3.0 T supercharged motor can definitely use more torque. It's not like a turbo torque curve. It's very linear. So if you can add a little bit more torque down there, it feels.
But yeah, you do trade off in high top end heat and yeah, there's always trade offs like we said.
Out of the 3 pulleys
Y'all
offer, would the 207 fall in between the other two in terms of power and heat produced? And would you recommend the 207 over the other two setups in one mesh?
So it gets tricky because there's so many options now. If you do just the lowers or just uppers, or you're talking about combinations of the two, just look at the pulley ratio. So basically divide the diameter of the lower pulley by the upper to get your ratios, and that's going to let you kind of see where everything lands. I mean, it's simple, just linear relationship.
And the higher the ratio,
the higher the ratio, the faster you're going to be spinning the supercharger. Yeah.
I want to take a second to address there was some 207 drama or attempted drama last week. There was some trolling individual going around saying that we said that we used to say that it was dangerous, but now that we're selling it, it's all of a sudden no longer dangerous or whatever. I don't know. So I personally interacted with this fine, pleasant person on YouTube, and I know there were some other interactions we had, and we just kept asking for evidence of where we had ever said that, and we hadn't, and I don't believe anything ever came of it.
Yeah.
We tooled up to do a 207. We didn't copy anybody. We just simply took our standard supercharger pulley and sized it to 207, which is a popular size that a lot of people want. There was some issues with bolt shearing from another manufacturer. We're friendly with this manufacturer. I don't want to repeat their names. I don't want to propagate it. We've talked about it in the past. And I actually discussed with the owner there the issues that they had, just to kind of see what their take on it was. Regardless, we did it. We put it on a few cars here. We've gone through our testing procedures. We didn't have any issues with the bolts breaking or anything like that. And so we've chosen to release it. And just simply because it was like one option out of the myriad of pulley options that we offer that we didn't support.
Yep.
And we wanted to when a customer comes into the 034 product ecosystem, we'd like to offer them all the choices that they'd like. And that means offering all the options, and not forcing them to go to a competitor to get the one thing they need.
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot on the stream too, but it's less about the pulley ratio specifically, more like we just said about, I'm sorry, it's less about the diameter of the pulley specifically than it is the ratio between the upper and lower pulleys. So, these 207 applications, if you're running a stock upper, or you're on like a CREC where you can't easily swap the upper to a much smaller pulley, you kind of, it has a purpose of it, outside of just doing like a 207 and a smaller upper and, trying to max out the pulley ratio.
So, and there's concerns about the bolts breaking. All we can say is we tested it. We didn't have that problem.
Yep.
We installed and torqued the bolts properly,
Yep.
and there's no issues. I don't, some people were getting defensive about that they had installed it correctly and it still broke. And listen, that's all you. I don't know anything about that. All we can do is go based off of our reality here, our testing. We validate it and we move forward. We can't confuse or dilute what we are doing with all the stuff that's out. It's just, that would be reckless for us. But no, I mean, we believe it's safe. We have no reason to think otherwise.
Yep.
We believe the competitor option is safe. If you install it correctly, I don't know, but I guess that's between whoever in that particular competitor.
We can't speak to every product out there.
But we're not here to say anyone else's thing is unsafe unless we actually think it's unsafe, and which I have a pretty good track record of calling out our competitors, much to my own detriment. We're done with that one. I hope you guys will support a tune with Mercracing's new supercharger for us who want to keep pushing the B8 platform.
Yeah, I mean,
this
comes down to, again, just if it's an option that becomes accepted on the market and it's released and becomes viable,
like a Whipple or something.
I believe he took just some off the shelf supercharger.
Yeah, I'd have to look at it and see what he was using. It's just one
It's
of these.
not a TVS unit.
It's just one of these things we need to have, a charger in our hands to do the calibration work on, and people need to actually be able to purchase and use and adopt it.
Yeah,
we can't spend a lot of time on like one-off, kind of hopes and dreams products.
Well, and is it even better? I mean,
that's where the real testing
a number of
is
supposed upgrades. But yeah, I mean, if there's 7 people running it, we're not going to support. But yeah, if this is the next big thing, how much is it?
I was seeing something around 7.
I mean, that's not terrible.
3,000 cheaper than BPS.
The PLS. Can I request a tune that keeps the B8.5 SQ5 valved muffler open at all times in dynamic or individual mode?
I gotta look at that. I don't know. I feel like we adjusted those at one point and we're asked to put it back. I'll have to look.
You might want to shelve that one for later.
Yeah.
Sure.
Do you guys have any plans to replicate the older PL34 in the Dynamic Plus dongle for older cartooning? I was thinking about the PL34.
PL34. Oh man, that thing was
a piece.
Such a pile to support. Possibly, yeah.
It wasn't our hardware.
The cables, the flashing cables we have now will actually, they have hardware on them that can flash even back to the K line stuff, so like ME7 days. So it's there. It's just a matter of building out the infrastructure on the server to support that. And obviously we're working with all the current stuff right now on the keeping the server up to date doing that. So potentially.
Or I mean, just full disclosure, this is the first time like. I literally think 89 lives that someone's asked about our older
the PL34
or the PL34 has come. This is the first time.
Yeah.
Just to highlight that this is not a focus.
Yeah. Right now our server and our distribution stuff is all set up for like Mark V era and newer. So like early 2000s and newer. Before that is you're talking K line over a serial single wire serial. So it's a much older kind of the first ever in vehicle flashable tech stuff.
Yeah, like when you plug into the ECU, it's connecting because it goes.
Yeah, you gotta throw the AOL CD at it.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys have any plans to? It's done.
Nope, you got that one.
Come on, guys, keep up. Update on R8V RS3 TTRS catch can. Yes.
I don't know where the hardware guys are with that. We've been testing it. We had it out on track.
It's coming. We're getting all the pieces manufactured. I don't know if we have a release date, but a lot of the parts are here. I know. We're having a new different type of gasket made to seal the top lid, so it's probably a little ways out. Jeez, burbles and crackles are here. Are burbles crackles for the Supercharged 3.0 T only available with test pipes?
They are. Yep. At this time, we've moved everything to the test pipe only files, just because the stock catalysts have a hard enough time with anything, even stock use. So it was just a decision that was made to, give them every chance we could to prolong the life as much as possible.
What's the best strut pairing for 034 lowering springs on a B8 SQ5? Mine seems to be very bouncy on my 120,000 mile OEM struts. Do I need to cut the bump stops? Generally, well, not generally, exclusively up till now, every dynamic plus lowering spring that we've developed is designed to use with the factory strut or shock damper that comes from it. Now, I do think there's something to the cutting the bump stops. I'm trying to remember what we discussed in the past.
It's not confirmed that on a webpage.
Yeah, we should confirm it, but generally yes. When you lower a car that much, this does get to be a problem. So, I would say if you want to experiment with that, it couldn't hurt. For example, and I'm not telling you to do this, but I'm speaking hypothetically. If you wanted to experiment with this on your own to some unknown solution, is you could go in there and cut 1 inch off your bump stop inside. If you can, I don't know if you can get to it, but if you can get in there and cut it, you may not be able to. But I would start with 1 inch and then see, and that's what we need to do here. We have tons of cars, SQ5s running currently, including our own Gary Sheehan's
On
SQ5 and Sony's as well. And we did thorough testing on it, and I think we believed it was, but this could also be 120,000 is a lot of miles on shocks.
Yep.
It's not necessarily doesn't mean they're bad, but they could be bad or worn out by 120,000 miles. So you might want to look into just changing the fronts and seeing how that feels, or do all 4 while you're at it. But we don't currently have a recommendation for cutting bump stops, but it's not a bad idea on a car that gets, we literally lower that like 3 inches. So,
On the Qs, yeah.
Yeah. And actually we just did something similar on my Q7. I don't have any bump stop issues. So, but the way you know it's a bump stop is if you're turning and you go into a corner and you kind of feel a jarring, let's say there's a bump right mid corner, and you'll just feel the car get really unsettled. If the car bounces like that, it means you've run out of travel, essentially. And it will feel more than just the suspension reacting on the chassis. You'll feel kind of that hard. It's not it's a mechanical, but it's a more violent rubberized version of a bump in the road, and that's kind of what you.
We've got some new questions up at the top here. Those are being asked.
What makes the turbo you produce for the Merc6 Golf R so expensive when you can get very close to that power output on stock turbo? You're talking about our R420. That's a Loba turbo that's offered. It's not a cheap turbo. That's the kit that we did years ago, and we're not going back and doing any more. It is about 50 more horsepower than the stock.
Yeah, I want to say it was like 30 or 40 wheel more on the top end than we were getting on the
about 50 crank more. So it's more power, but it's not a cheap option. You're right. And if you think it's too expensive, don't buy it.
Yeah,
go with a different option.
It's a genuine OEM turbo that is then it's a new OEM turbo that is then modified.
Yeah, in Germany by Loba, these turbos are used in factory Audi and Volkswagen racing efforts. So very high quality, very expensive, not cheap. I think if you're just looking for like a really refined sports car power band with another 50 horsepower, but not too much more lag, and OEM plus quality, then That's a good way to go. Why can't I use a cable to flash Mark IV tune?
That's what we just talked about. So that's an older Motronic ME7. So it's down to the flashing tech on the server and getting all of the file handling and algorithms set, and all of the automated processing, flashing and reflashing and all that handling done on the server. And it's just not something we've prioritized right now because it's such a low volume thing for us at this point.
Can you guys delete older questions?
I think we did.
All the ones we're up to date here. No, that's been asked twice now. Specifically looking for new strut recommendations.
No, he's already said the SQ5, the struts we recommend are the OEMs. That's all. That's all we've ever run.
It's like the same question. Can we get rid of that top link so I don't know why that's
Nick.
no, what are we supposed to
Wow.
promote our own tuners? That's not what we do. 93 octane tune availability for RS3 DAZA.
We have it. It's just not. I don't think it's listed in fully. We haven't done the full power
Testing.
measurement stuff on our dyno in our isolated way. But
It's tested.
It's available on server. It's tested. We've run it a bunch.
Yeah, if you want, you can run it. We just don't. We haven't done the dyno advertised dyno power testing. It makes more power than 91. But yeah, we just haven't spent the time to go back. But we do have a file that supports 93. It's optimized. It will make the most practical optimized power you can make on 93.
Yeah, and it wasn't like world changing over the 91 files. It's 2 octane different, so it's not hugely different.
Yeah. Real quick, we had some exciting product releases in the past few weeks. So this is our new. What do we call this? The RCO ball joint.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Which is roll and camber optimizing ball joint. This is a factory ball joint here, and it's kind of tough to see the difference, but visibly they're quite different. So do we have a picture of these like side by side?
No, we do not.
We should. I mean, it's you can see it's shocking the difference.
Yeah.
Which we need to take this picture. But we have this really cool animation graphic on the webpage for this that shows the front tire in the stock ball joint location and the front tire and lower control arm in the new location that our ball joint puts it in. So the advantage of this ball joint is this is a direct fit for all MQBs with that aren't like TTRS based. So I believe it fits RS3s, GTIs, Golf Rs, all that stuff. There's two main things this does. One, the ball joint inherently gives more camber. So we moved the ball joint stud out away from the center of the car. So this now gives you a wider track and inherently more camber. And then we also lengthened the ball joint stud. So what this does is it puts the lower control arm in the correct position for any car that's been lowered about 1.5 inches. And that optimizes the roll center of the car. And roll center is a very complicated concept to explain. But basically, when the car turns, lateral forces act on the suspension. And the roll center is the amount of leverage those forces have on the suspension to cause the car to roll or sway. Sway bars help counteract that force, but the force is amplified when you lower your car and you don't relocate the ball joint position as we've done. So not only will you notice more grip from the increased camber, but you'll notice much better body roll control by the more optimized roll center position that we put the suspension in. So we're basically re-optimizing the roll center as it was factory. When you lower the car, you gain a lot. You lower your center of gravity,
Right.
but you also that counteracts the roll center optimization. So
Yeah, that graphic really helps a lot.
the graphic is great.
You can really see the the control arm geometry get back to where it should be.
And ideally, you know, when a car is sitting level, the lower control arm should be level with the ground. And when you lower the car a lot, they tilt. So you'll see the arms go back into place and the increased camber. So very exciting product. It's been very popular. We've sold a ton of them. They're in stock, ready to ship. $175 a pair, I believe. And they're beautiful too. I'm really happy with how they turned out. They have a really nice nickel plating. Really exciting to be able to bring these type of products.
We've been talking about these for I don't know how many years. There's so many other kind of clunky ways to fix this problem.
And then we also released this really nice Billet oil filter housing for 2.0 Gen 3s. It's just a replacement for the factory plastic one. We chose not to put any cooling fins on it because you don't actually cool your oil that way. There is an oil cooler, an oil cooling system on the car, but putting fins on this part that's buried in a hot engine compartment is not gonna. It might actually introduce more heat into your oil depending on the temperature that's outside. We haven't done testing on that, but heat goes both ways. Remember, if a heat sink can evacuate heat, it can also draw it in with this increased surface area. So I think there's some possible gimmicks out there. So we just chose to stick with a more durable lifetime quality part for the oil filter housing that doesn't strip or break because it's not made out of plastic.
Plastic stuff is so sketchy.
It's also gorgeous and beautiful. You may want to just use it as a goblet to drink out of, to impress your friends. Or you could like hang it around your neck when you go to the club.
Is it dishwasher safe?
Okay. I think so. All right, and we've had other new product releases as well. So hopefully you're on our email list. If you haven't been getting our announcements, go sign up for our email list somehow. How would they do that?
They email us to get added.
You can email contact.
Yep.
Contact at 034motorsport.com.
Yep.
What do you guys think about Jay's cogged pulley for the B8 platform? These are cogged pulleys for the supercharger and the crank pulley.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, we haven't had any problems with the standard serpentine stuff slipping. When using the right belt and everything.
If you've got a good belt on there, it's
Yeah.
I mean, generally a solid setup. It's the cogged pulleys will certainly solve any of that belt slip issue though if you're struggling. They're a lot louder from what I've heard. The videos I've seen,
that's why
that's a cog belt. That's a trade. You're going to have that no matter what with a cog belt. Basically, you're pocketing the air on every one of the pulleys that belt's going around, and it's going to make some noise.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I think if you have a good working setup, there's no reason to do that.
Yeah, if you're struggling with belt slip or you just want to update everything and you want some raunchy sounding pulleys on your car, sure.
Is the high flow cat worth it for B9 S4? So we talk about this quite a bit. It's worth it if you're looking for that extra 10 horsepower or so on stage 2. The problem is you are modifying your factory emission system, which is illegal. It's only legal for sanctioned racing. Which is we offer these products for that purpose. So I think more and more we're encouraging people to keep the factory cat in place.
Yeah, they're so good compared to what they were just a few years
and
ago.
help you. We will help you make a lot of legal power and clean power. I talk about this. Your car is not going to make or break the Earth, the planet's atmosphere. But generally speaking, there's no reason we should put additional pollution into the air if we don't need to. And more and more with these newer Audis. I mean, a B9 S4 factory cat's huge, right? It's like 8 inches in diameter. So even though it's technically a restrictive catalyst, there's so much of it that it actually produces almost the same power as a test bike.
They're shockingly good for the amount of scrubbing they do.
If you do a high flow cat, I'll maintain ours is the best on the market. It's Euro 4 rated, so it runs very clean. In our testing, it flows the same as a test pipe. It's not the cheapest option out there. It's really good. It will have a long lasting life. But if you do our stage 1 with an intake and intercooler, you'll get about 75% of the power of stage 2. And that's what I would personally do. And then I could drive in peace on the street, knowing that I'm still fully emissions. I'm not putting a lot of additional pollution into the air
for
an extra 10-15 horsepower.
Can you talk?
And that's at the crank.
Well, so we're going to push stage 3 as far as we can on the factory cat as well for people running on the street.
Yep.
And we plan on making quite a bit of power with that.
Absolutely.
And there will be the higher you go, the more you'll lose. But we're going to quantify that for everyone, and our hope is that people will feel like the little amount you lose will be worth it for the other benefits.
Right.
I mean, the other advantage is you have a problem with the car, you have a warranty, you just flash the car back to stock. You don't have to go in there and pull your cat.
Put your turbo.
Well, I'm not talking about stage 2.
No, for stage 2. Yeah. Yep.
What are safe oil temps in Audis? I mean,
Impossible question to answer without more information around it. But I mean, it's going to really depend on what oil you're running, what motor we're talking about.
I'd say most people's concerns about oil temp are overreacting.
It's
generally, if it's under 300, I wouldn't be concerned. Even
and you're running a good synthetic oil.
Yeah, which you will be. Please rename your platinum hour to power hour. Well, it's not technically named platinum hour. I like to joke about that. Power hour, I think, is taken by some Christian televangelist, where they actually connect you to God if you watch their show. I'll have your stage 1 B9 S4 tune and love it. Thank you guys. Amazing work. You're welcome. Great to hear. That's why we do it. I live in the Northeast. I keep an 18 B9 S4 stage 2. Should I keep a 2018 B9 S4 stage 2, or would you grab a 22 RS3 when available? As overall, I'd like a quicker car, but still retain 4 doors.
I mean, the RS3 will be, it's getting tough. I mean, the RS3 at this point is not.
It's not more car.
It's not more car, and it's not going to be quicker.
It's less car, actually.
They're not flashable yet. So you're going to have that unknown waiting period until those all get unlocked and everybody sorts out the flashing stuff for them.
Which could be yours.
Who knows? Yeah, there's a lot of ECUs right now that are pretty tightly locked down that we're working on. So that's a tough one to answer because it's got a lot of unknowns around.
The S3 has a 3 liter, so it's half a liter more displacement.
RS3
is 2.5.
Yep.
Yeah, the S3 is
S4.
Sorry, the S4.
There we go.
I didn't say RS3. Yeah. The S4 is 3 liters. Yeah. The RS3 is 2.5 liters. So you have half a liter more displacement. So it is more motor, more car, and there's no limit at this point that we can see on what turbos we can put in these things. So, you can make just as much power with an S4. It'll make more torque. It's a little bigger, heavier car, but if you're looking for 4 doors and a more roomy, luxurious car, that's where's the way to go. And I think the biggest issue is the tuning perspective. The new DWNAs is still unknown.
Yeah, every year that there's these big platform shifts and ECUs change, it's an effort to figure out what and how we're going to be flashing these. So there's unknowns on the horizon right now with the new RS cars that have already been overcome on your S4. So.
Couple questions about: is there a way to put stage 1 on a B9 S5 without losing your Audi warranty getting flagged by Audi? Would getting a new computer and flashing that one be enough? Can Audi tell if I flash back to stock if I were to have a warranty claim?
I mean, we don't ever speak to that. Well, we do speak to that in that, like, if you're flashing your car, expect the warranty to be unknown at that point.
Yeah, I mean, any modification to your car could void the warranty. I mean, a remote starter, which everyone seems to be doing, who live up north, could do it. Aftermarket wheels could.
There's
Any modification
of things that they can.
You could change your air filter to a K&N and they could void your warranty. So any modification, but you can flash your car back to stock. I would say there's broad consensus that people flash their car back to stock and go to the dealer without any issues.
Yeah, and obviously
we don't guarantee it.
We haven't had anybody that I know of that's had anything caused by any of our calibrations that drove a warranty claim. So it's generally a valid, procedure. Flash back to stock, bring it in. You're not trying to get around anything. When we our stock files are 100% stock. As far as what the dealer and Audi can tell, we don't know exactly what they're looking for, and it changes and how they look for it. So. That's a moving target that we're never going to say, yeah, we can fully isolate it and they can't tell.
But they can see the flash count change.
They can see flash counts change, but they can also, they for a number of years been putting tattletales in other modules in the vehicle that there's been hints at as well. So, to 100% know that you can go in and everything's going to be clear is something we can't claim. That said, I don't think we've had anybody with an issue yet.
I would say this. I mean, you could go out there and look for horror stories about this. I don't think there's lots of them. If there were, you'd be hearing about it. And we have 2 service departments, and people are driving brand new cars in there every week. To do the full boat modifications. So,
but yeah, with any flash from any vendor. I don't think anyone could ever realistically claim that it can never be detected. So keep that in mind for whatever claims you may hear. And there are some companies offering OEM warranties, but they're their own backed warranty. It's
they're not.
Yeah,
they're offering
the air quotes. Yeah,
they got into extended warranties before they got popular.
Yep.
But yeah, it's just an aftermarket extended warranty.
That's all those are.
May or may not be denied if you have a problem. With that said, the onus is on the dealer to prove that whatever you modified caused the failure. So that could result in some arguing on the phone and some calls to Audi of America, or even possibly hiring a lawyer if you needed to. But Audi, Ford, Chevy, whoever, they have to prove by U.S. law that they have a legal obligation to fulfill your warranty. And they can say they canceled it, but if they can't verify that what you did caused the failure, which in most cases they won't. I can't think of one instance with our tuning where we ever caused a failure that would have affected a factory warranty. And the onus is still on the dealer. So usually what happens is after some initial resistance, if you work your way up the ladder with the dealership or with Audi, that you will get the warranty reinstated. But it might not be worth your time. I'll just say this, full transparency. If you're concerned about the warranty and the warranty is really important to you and you're willing to not have any fun with your car because of the warranty, then don't modify your car.
Yep. And don't assume also that a piggyback will get you around that.
No, there is a tuning box program at the dealers at Audi to find and they can actually see that a tuning box is on the car. So that's no guarantee.
Commonly, the flat reflashing program is called TD1.
Yeah.
The tuning box program is called TB1. And there are internal documents going around for both of those.
Yeah. But most of the people, I'd say all the people watching this, all the people who buy our products, they don't care about the warranty. They feel comfortable knowing that the quality of the products will not cause any problems with their warranty, and it's a worthwhile risk they take on. So. I mean, I went mountain biking twice this weekend. There's a pretty good chance that I could have fallen and broken my neck. I did it anyways because it was a fucking blast. So this is kind of like one of those things as well.
My neighbor did that.
Broke his neck? Yeah. Mountain biking?
Yeah.
Oof.
Dave, remember?
Yeah. I didn't know it was from that.
Yep. He was riding his bike.
I was very careful. I don't break my neck.
If I remember correctly, this was literally on a flat road. It just was some stupid circumstance he ended up.
All right, we got 1 minute left. What fuel pumps will you recommend for use with your B9 3.0T? We're not making any recommendations yet. We are working on our own solutions, so we will reserve any recommendations for ourselves.
Yeah.
if and when the time comes and we are releasing files and we don't have hardware support, then we will decide what to do with that.
Right.
Generally, we don't like to refer our customers to other companies for solutions. We like to provide all the solutions ourselves. And, you know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. The second we recommend something else from someone else, there's going to be an issue with it. We won't have any control over it. And then customers will have bad experiences and they'll say, why did you tell us to do that? I hate you.
Yeah, we've been dealing with this a lot recently on another pump. So it's tough. But, you know, we'll have calibrations that support all the pumps on the market are essentially the same for the upgrades.
They max out
it's the size you're able to run. Mm-hmm. So our calibrations will support that, and then we will have our own pump as well, just like we do with the B8 now.
All right, I think we're out of time.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Oh gosh, yeah, we're really out of time.
Okay, thanks everybody. Cheers. We'll see you next week, hopefully.
Yep.
All right.